Hello and welcome to Transcontinental Times. Today's episode is for every young graduate who's excited, confused, ambitious, uncertain, or perhaps all of those at once. We live in a world where opportunities seem endless, but so does the noise. Degrees are no longer enough. Marks alone do not guarantee direction. And in a crowded, fast changing professional world, one of the biggest questions young people face is this: how do I stand out, stay relevant, and build a career with meaning? Our guest today has spent nearly 2 decades helping brands, businesses, and leaders answer a similar question: how to communicate clearly, build trust, tell their story with authenticity and impact. Joining us is Joeleen Gomes, a seasoned marketing and communications professional with over 18 years of experience across industries, as diverse as infrastructure, manufacturing, automobiles, media, e commerce, telecom, and advertising. The companies she has worked for are brand names and household names in their own right. Her work sits at the intersection of brand building, strategic communication, digital marketing, internal culture, and reputation. But what makes this conversation especially relevant for young graduates such as you is Jolene's deep belief that everybody has a story, but some just tell it better than others. Perhaps that is one of the most important lessons for the modern career journey, because today employers are not only hiring qualifications, they are hiring for clarity, attitude, adaptability, communication, and trust. They are hiring people who can think, learn, express, and connect. In this episode, we will speak about what young graduates often get wrong about careers, why communication is now a career superpower, and how to think about personal branding without becoming artificial, what employees really notice in the early years, and how to prepare for a future being shaped and reshaped by artificial intelligence, transparency, and constant change. So, whether you are just graduating, starting your first job, considering a career shift, or trying to find your voice in a competitive world, this conversation is for you. Let's begin. Jolene, welcome to the show. I will start by asking you, when you started your career, what were the biggest misconceptions you had about what career success meant?
First of all, thank you, Mr. Singh, for inviting me for this podcast. This topic of career development is very close to me because I come from an era where we did not have a lot of resources to know. Newspapers were our first hand experience to the real world. So I'm glad that I'm on this podcast to discuss this issue with you. So, going back to your question, I think for me, the career system at that point of time, some 20 years ago, was very simple. People either wanted to be doctors or engineers. My profile, which is a communication specialist profile, was something which was not even discussed in the drawing rooms of normal people. In fact, it took me some time to convince or to convince my family and parents and what I do. For me, uh, you know, I was very fortunate to have been part of a good, strong education system. I was studying in a convent school where there were people, my teachers, my educators were very learned, and we would discuss books, we would discuss. And I was in a girls' school which was run by Irish nuns. So there was a lot of global integration in terms of what happens on the other side of the world. So that took a lot of interest for me. I was curious. So the most important part, I would say, is being curious about what's happening around, what is new. And I didn't want to follow the same old path of being a teacher or a doctor or an engineer. My mother is an educator, and she wanted me to be an educator as well. She's been a teacher for the last 42 years. Uh, but I took up this career path because I wanted to indulge in something which was completely out of the box. And I'm glad that I did. but if you talk about the education system, there were gaps wherein I was just going through books and newspapers. Newspapers was something that I was reading for maybe to improve my English or to know what's happening in the world. There was no internet at that point of time. We had just started using computers, and we had some very limited. We were going to book fairs and uh, exchanging books. So I think that got me into this profession of communication, where I was writing and reading a lot and learning a lot.
So when
Yeah.
we speak of communication and we speak of careers, and we are basically speaking white collar, and uh,
Yes.
people always aspire to have international careers, global careers, or at least work in a multinational corporation, even if it is an Indian multinational corporation.
Yeah.
What is your take on, how important is it to be fluent in business English for that? Because that's a big challenge that we face with French graduates.
Yes, I think that's a very important issue to be addressed at this point of time. In fact, business communication is part of all syllabus in all courses that are communication based, and I think it should also be part of other curriculums of engineering or any other. I mean, I'm just talking engineering right now because I'm currently employed with an engineering firm. But I do see that, even a slight lack of business communication brings a lot of misunderstandings or misconceptions. Say, for example, I'm just going to talk about the company I'm currently working with. We have engineers who are sitting in this part of the world, in India, catering to or working on projects which are in the Nordics, and they have to deal with their teams abroad sitting across the world. So I feel, yeah, sometimes there are a lot of misunderstandings because it's a particular thing about a project is not um, I would say, communicated in a proper way. So basic English is something, but yes, business communication is something wherein you need to be weighing what you say, how you say it, and of course, there's no perfect way of saying things, but business communication is absolutely integral when it
Yeah,
comes to
because
basic
whether
working
whether we
culture.
like it or not, the global language of business is English, and
Yes.
it makes it critical. And communication is actually just the ability to be understood,
Yeah.
and the ability to understand others. But just to pick up on that point, a lot of fresh graduates, uh, one of the common questions they get in interviews, "Tell me about yourself," and they all stumble.
Yeah.
Communication is now more of a core skill and superpower than just a simple soft skill. Uh, what should learners really do to improve? Because it's not something that's taught on campus. It is not something that's graded. It's not something you get credits for, but it is something absolutely critical. Take the example of freshers, right? Fresh graduates, an HR head or somebody like ourselves walks in, all the people, all the graduates are the same age, probably same demography, similar marks, same the skill levels, etc. How do I distinguish? Often it is about communication, and it's not just the words they use, but how they dress, how they the body language goes, etc. So how do you advise people to work on that while they're on campus?
Yes, I think it along with their curriculum, along with their syllabus, it's important that uh, students have to move from theory heavy learning to practice led learning. That's what you also kind of want to imply here. Communication and storytelling is something that has to go hand in hand, and it cannot be communication cannot be taught in isolation. While we are studying, while I'm a student at a university, I think we have to start practicing. We have to first manifest where we want to be, and we have to kind of start practicing that while we are studying, because you will never get that opportunity of being with hundreds of students around, coming from different walks of life, understanding their mindset. So I would say that they have to embed storytelling in everything that they do: presentations, group sessions, uh, structural thinking, we are in a real world. It's not enough to have a point of view to myself or study and do assignments. We have to convince others of our existence, which eventually will happen when they move into a corporate world. So I would say a practice setting, a university campus is a practice setting for you to kind of just involve yourself, engage yourself with everybody. uh, Whether you're sitting in a cafeteria, or and today's students have so much to explore, so much to view when it comes to the internet, when it comes to the social media platforms. You have so much information happening. So it will give you that opportunity to kind of discuss world geopolitical issues, or maybe um, anything entertainment. If you wanted to be in the entertainment business, you have everything out there. So filtering that out and kind of understanding what will work for you, that's more important.
Actually, you brought up an interesting point. When we go on campus, when we see the festivals they have, etc., and there is so much creativity coming out of people there.
Yeah.
Then you watch their social media pages, and they are making reels, and there's so much creativity happening there. And often I wonder, why don't you bring that same storytelling skill to your personal, professional life, and talk about yourself, build narratives around yourself,
Yes.
build your uh, backstory and your life story in something that will be of interest to people. What is it that stops people from making that mental shift when it comes to the professional workplace?
See, I think we, as an Indian, I would say it's maybe our culture. It's a little closed. I wouldn't say that we are very close. We are evolving, but having traveled to a couple of places in my lifetime, and working with teams which have been in the US, Nordics, or APAC regions, I've realized that we come with a little closed mindset, you know and for fresh graduates, they kind of consistently lack three very important things, which is clarity, ownership, and business context. So the question that you've asked me is that the students need to kind of balance it out. They have to break out of their comfort zone, because they are coming from a lineage where parents were not exposed to certain kind of culture. But now the generation that is existing now wants to explore. But again, since we live with our parents, most of the students, I would say, 80% or 50% live with their parents. We kind of have that kind of backing also in our minds, that whether this is good or not, or what will some there are a lot of social obligations as well. But having said that, I think students should be able to have the freedom to express their ideas. That'll give them more clarity going forward. They need to have ownership uh, beyond assigned tasks, that you can ideate, brainstorm, and share your ideas and perspective. And definitely understanding how their work connects to a larger uh, business goal. If a student is part of an events team, they can probably realize that, oh, I'm good at this. Actually, that's how I realize that I love being in this people's profile, and I love to be with people and manage people. And I remember this was some 20 years back. I was part of, I think it was my first or second event that I was conducting. I was very, very young, had just joined this big firm, and there was a press conference for one of my clients. And I was just jumping around, doing everything, putting everything together. And I remember at the end of the event, my manager came to me, and she just took me in a corner and she said, Jolene, I'm very, very proud of you, the way you have kind of handled the logistics without even knowing how it is done. So I felt that, okay, it's inbuilt. It gave me the confidence to go forward and share my ideas. And further on, she sent me on bigger projects, and she had that confidence in me. And that's what has taken me so far. So, trust building is very important, and self confidence is important here. So
It's interesting, pretty much the first 5 years of a career gives us direction and shapes us like the
yes,
first 5 years of a life, right? So
yes.
when young graduates, get into a job and are going through the first 3 to 5 years, how should they? optimize that time because they are young, they're enthusiastic, they're open to learning? How should they optimize that experience, as well as how should they work on their personal branding? Are there things that one should do?
I think critical thinking and problem solving, these are two very important bases of whatever we do while we are developing ourselves and preparing ourselves for the next step of our life. Uh, you have to approach everything with a lot of openness. You know, you cannot be thinking that no, this cannot be done, or how do I do it. When I say critical thinking in problem solving, I know not every problem can be solved, but we need to kind of help the students as teachers, as mentors, to tell them that these are the kind of issues that you can face in the future. Everything is not, I've seen that students, when they come in, freshers, when they come in a corporate, they have this very different mindset that, oh, we're going to earn well, we're going to wear branded clothes, an iPhone is very important for us. uh, these are basics which can be ignored, because maybe I'm a bit old school, if you can make out, but I feel that you need to work towards getting all those things. But today's students are a little different, and they do not kind of think that, they just want to go with the flow. But I think critical thinking is very important, skill development is very important. If you are in a particular curriculum of doing something, you need to have some extra skill developments as well. You need to know some other tools. There are so many tools in the market, and it will definitely help you further on your skill set if you kind of take up some kind of designing program. Like for a communication professional, I think basic designing skills are very important. um, of course, now you have chat gpt for everything, which I'm not not much in favor of, because it's just something that you can kind of ideate with, but the human side of it doesn't come forward. So I would say that internships need to give students a lot of real world exposure, life projects, industry interactions, so the part of critical thinking comes to them before they kind of step out in real roles.
What's your view on, when it comes to personal branding? How much should they share on sites like LinkedIn, etc., or write on it, or talk about the experiences, or should they just stay away from it for the first few years?
No, no, I don't think so. They should stay away at all, because that's your first step, or your first view to you connecting, networking. I think networking is very, very important when you're stepping out into the corporate world. You kind of, even if you cannot reach, say, if I'm a fan of, I was following a couple of brands when I was starting my career, and I was reading a lot, because you don't that's the way you reach out to them. And now things are so smooth and so easy for us to kind of connect with celebrities on a one-on-one level. um, Definitely they should be on these platforms, and personal branding is, again, I say, it's the first step to kind of present yourself. You can improvise at every step. You can actually be there up on the market without actually going through interviews, because the first thing I would ever do if I'm meeting you, Mr. Singh, I would probably go on the LinkedIn platform and check what are your credentials. And a platform like LinkedIn would bring in a lot of clarity and credibility to your personality, because we haven't met. It's just about it's called digital persona, to be very honest. And you kind of come with a mindset that, okay, this person has knowledge about these things, so I would know what to talk to him about, or what kind of questions I can ask. And you get a lot of knowledge transfer from the content they are sharing, which probably I wouldn't find somewhere else. So I think personal branding is very, very important, but again, you have to filter of what you're taking, what on which profile.
Actually, there's a point you made to an earlier question about the use of AI tools. For fresh graduates, we always advise that you should be careful. If you rewrite your resume with words that you don't understand and make it all flowery and perfect, moment to sit for the interview, in a few seconds we know it's not authentic. You come
Yes,
across as fake. So you can
yes,
use it to get the grammar right, get the punctuation right, but don't rewrite it, and don't, at least
yes.
even if you rewrite it, read what you've written, because often they get found out.
Yes. Yes, I completely am in concurrence with you here. A lot of youngsters are doing that without even understanding the fact that the people they are interacting with have a lot of experience. They've met a lot of people, and like someone like me who's worked in a lot of companies and have had experience of interacting, uh, you can very quickly make out that okay, if this person is faffing or this person is genuine. So you very correctly said that at least they need to do their checks. They need to kind of see. I mean, they need to understand that AI can replicate easily, but they cannot replicate judgment, creativity,
Yeah.
and communication. It can generate content, but it can't replace original thinking or nuanced decision making. So I would I would definitely suggest the youngsters that you use it as a tool, as a reference tool. It's easy, but do not depend on it completely. You know,
Yeah.
the real differentiator will be your ability to kind of do it yourself
It's
and
very
be more
true.
genuine. Be yourself and be genuine.
Authenticity is so critical, especially nowadays when everybody comes up across, in this perfect social world on the digital media. So there was, something else on another topic. When young people start out, I often ask them that do you want a job or a career? A job is you go into a big company, get set into a role, pass paper, or do the same thing again and again and again. You progress, you get annual bonuses, you get increments, you progress in a fixed manner or a steady manner, and you have a job. Nothing wrong in that. But if you want to build a career, need to go into places where you're thrown in front of a customer, thrown into the fire with a project, thrown into things you've not done, etc. Now, the answer seems intuitive, but I had an interesting experience. I went to one of the IIMs to speak 2 weeks ago, the top one in India. And I asked the students, it was an entrepreneurship workshop, how many of you want to become an entrepreneur? Not even one hand went up. I was shocked because if you look at the investment story in India, they'll say all the top guys come out from IIM and IITs. But I realized that those are people who get into entrepreneurship 10 to 20 years after a career. So I asked the students, why are you so risk averse? They said we have 40 to 50 lakh rupee loans we have taken to study here. We first need to go repay that before we do anything else. So that was a realization for me. But if that was not a criteria, would you recommend people taking a little more risk and jumping into areas where they are challenged, or stay steady state? There's no right or wrong answer.
I think if they have the skill set, if they have a new idea, I would say just jump into it. Uh, of course, it's not going to be very cushioned, but yes, you're very right. I have a lot of friends in my network who have kind of taken up entrepreneurship after 20 years of working or 15 years of working and thinking that, okay, now I'm done with this corporate life and I want something of my own. But trust me, it's not been so simple. The first 5 years again is like having a child and, just working on it. If you have the correct mindset for it, if you have the courage, the most important thing, Mr. Singh, here is courage to kind of do something new and fail because it's never going to be perfect. Uh, but I personally feel that yes, if you can do it, you have a new product or you have a new idea. You have examples if you've seen the market. There's so many entrepreneurs who have kind of built something good for themselves and they've been good inspirations. Um, there should be kind of future labs or institutions which can kind of help them learn this kind of thing because jump a new student getting into entrepreneurship just by seeing a YouTube video doesn't help. You need to know the realities of life. So if they have the right kind of training or the right kind of mentorship, I would definitely say they should jump into it.
Fair enough. You must have worked with quite a few fresh graduates in the first jobs, etc. What are some of the top mistakes people make in their first jobs?
There are a lot of job mistakes that I've done in the past.
It is, I was at one of the IITs and the professor told me half our place students lose their jobs within first 3 months. So obviously many of them do a lot of things wrong. But just a few from the top of your mind.
I think One mistake which I feel a lot of youngsters do, freshers do, is they feel that they know it all. Um, I have come across a couple of them, and I've understood that because they have access to so much information and so many, uh, platforms where they can read and write, the feeling, or I would say the sense that I need to learn from my seniors or mentors, that has kind of shifted. That shift I've seen, and I think that's the biggest mistake that they do. If a mentor is kind of sharing their experience, or even if they're not sharing the experience, it's important for us. You have to be a learner all your life. Today, even if I have completed 2 decades this year, I have always made it a point to learn from either a senior or a junior or a client. You always have to be in the learning stage. That attitude needs to be carried forward all through. And that is one mistake which I've been seeing very, very much amongst a lot of youngsters these days. They do not have the um, hunger for learning. They feel that we know it all. We don't want to kind of learn from your experience.
Fair enough. You see that in a lot of people. But often among young people, you also find a couple, a few where you feel this person will go far. This person
Hmm.
has an X factor. This person is different.
Hmm.
What what is it that triggers that kind of thought? What is it that they are doing that makes us think that this person is going to go far?
I think clarity of thoughts. The person knows what they want. If I have kind of completed a course in something, and then I feel that, oh no, this profession is going to give me more money, and then I skip, that kind of mindset wouldn't take you very far. You need to be very, very clear in your thought process, and be consistent at it. So clarity and consistency at scale is the main factor that'll take somebody very, very far. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
It can be subjective, but for me, if I'm looking at a person and that person has clarity of thoughts and a plan in place, a plan A and plan B in place, that's the
It's
one.
a very valid point. In all my years of coaching, the one thing I believe leaders have, which is uncoachable, is clarity of thought.
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but I'm not confused. So they'll
Yeah.
go and try it. If they're wrong, they'll course correct. But they won't be confused and they won't procrastinate and keep on and on and on doing theory. So that's an interesting point that you bring. Uh, today's today's world is of jobs and careers is being shaped, reshaped, disrupted by artificial intelligence. So, are there human skills which will become more valuable in this AI-driven world? Is it something we should be fearful of?
Not really. No, I wouldn't agree on that, because it's it's a machine. We've built Humans have built machines, and I really don't think that AI can take it forward, or take the jobs, etc. Because eventually we're selling a product, we're selling it to a human, so we have to have the thinking of a human. I sell brands. I have been part of mass brands like shoes and clothes, and now into infrastructure. So it's all about human perspective. AI is just helping us ease our work. It's just helping us generate content, generate ideas, but it can definitely not replace what a human brain can think. I mean, I would say Einstein was the first AI generated human. You can say, it was humans who've built these platforms. So I completely disagree with the fact that AI will be kind of
Okay,
replacing.
I'm going to ask you five or six rapid fire questions, and if you
Okay.
can give me an answer in a word or a sentence, it'll be great. What is that one skill every graduate must master? One skill.
Communication and good grammar. I'm sorry, but grammar is something which really, really is important while we
I
are.
understand, appropriate communication, and in communication, I would include grooming, the way you look, because that also communicates something about
Yeah.
you, right?
Yes.
What is that one book every young professional should read?
Well, I would just say that a Red and Martin would be the best one because uh, I have grown up kind of it has been my Bible. I've later on kind of I've decided to get on and read more autobiographies, etc. But when it comes to books, a basic is a Ren and Martin or an Oxford Dictionary, which nobody is using these days. They're
Yeah,
all
I'll
in,
be surprised if any of our graduates have actually heard of it.
yeah.
But just moving on, uh, you have a successful career, multiple companies in branding, communication. What is that one habit that changed your career? I'm sure you didn't start off this way.
Yeah, yeah. I was a novice. I had no clue what I'm getting into, and this profession happened to me by accident. I was supposed to be an educator like my mother, but because I knew that I did not want to be an educator, of course, I did not. I had the clarity that I do not want to be a teacher, but I did not know what to be. But I was very, very fortunate to kind of land up in this profession and have some great mentors on the way. I've learned so much on the job from the people that I've worked with, my seniors. They're all leading good brands and professionally doing very well, and everybody has taught me something. You know, but the one thing that I've really kind of learned from most of them is presenting yourself. You know, adaptability. If I'm going to a mine in Odisha for some meeting, you have to kind of adapt to that culture, maybe the way you're looking, the way you talk, or if you're going for a meeting in the Nordics, then the way adaptability is something that I've learned from all my managers previously. Yeah,
Fair enough. Uh, One interview mistake that candidates often make.
I would say they don't I mean they need to do their research well. If they're going for an interview, researching about the company is very, very important. Reading what's been in the news about them in the past 10 years, it's very important to know the history and background of the company that they're going for the interview, and also reading about you know the industry they're going in for, which nobody does these days. Because if they see, oh, I'm being interviewed by a big conglomerate, I would love to, but reading about it, the culture, that's very important. Doing your research well.
It's interesting you say that most people don't read nowadays. Uh, I was at a seminar the other day and I asked the audience, how many of you have seen the latest movie Dhurandhar? All hands went up, or most at least. I said, how many of you are patriotic? All hands went up. I said, name the chief of army staff. Not
Yeah,
one person knew.
that is exactly what I'm saying, Mrs. Singh, that um, today's youth is very, very aligned with what's happening on the social media platforms. It's
Yes.
the attention span is so less that we are kind of forgetting um, our background in terms of our base. That's lacking in the youth these days.
So we've come to the end, and I have one last question for young graduates who are going to be watching this. They are very confused about the future, right? With the AI, the war going on, uh, the noise about you are educated but not employable. There aren't enough jobs. AI is eating up all the jobs. What would be your one message to graduates who feel confused about the future?
I think my one message to them would be to kind of see what's happening in the world first. You have to be informed. I was someone who, I would just take my example over here. I come from a simple middle class Delhi family, uh, and what I did to kind of explore to know was I traveled a lot when I was younger. I used to ask questions. Whenever I was traveling, whenever I got the chance with my parents, if I was in a train, I would ask questions to the fellow passengers. And what do you do? How do you do it? Experiences teach you a lot. And I made it a point that I travel every year someplace unique where I get to know people, understand their story, know their backgrounds, and then come back and reflect. So when these young children, and I also met a lot of youngsters while I was traveling overseas. There were a lot of children, students, youngsters who were taking break uh, during their school and college. I even met a family once of some three children, parents, their young kids, and this was in Cambodia, and that changed my perspective towards education, towards um, corporate life. It was a family of four or three and three children, and they were traveling together, backpacking, parents, father, mother, and three children, young children. And the first question that came to me as an Indian was, if you've been traveling for the world on or backpacking throughout the year, since last year, what do you do with your children? So, they're not going to schools. So their answer was so simple and unique. They were like, the world is their school. They are at such a young age, they've traveled some 20, 30 countries already. And we do homeschooling for them. And they're experiencing every culture, which was a little unique for me because we don't think like that. When our kids, 4, 5 years, we're always thinking, oh, kaun se school mein dalna hai, where they're going to go. So I would say that if you get the time, if you don't have the pressure to build a career, taking a break here would really be good to kind of, if not travel abroad, travel in the country. You have so many places to go and learn, sit with people and learn their stories. That's how I've kind of improved on myself as well. I take this that as like a, every year I make sure that I go somewhere new and meet someone new. I don't know if you have the time, but I'll very quickly tell you that I was traveling to Rovaniemi in Finland, and from Helsinki. It was on a night train, and the passenger next to me was a 75-year-old woman, very old woman. And I had a chat with her that what does she do, and she told me that she's a retired nurse from Red Cross. And this was, I think, the year 2018, right before COVID. She told me that she had, along with her four friends, women friends, drove from Finland to, via the Silk Route, India to Bangladesh in a car in the 60s. And the stories that she told me, I was so impressed. And so the kind of that whole night we were chatting, and I had no idea that 60s was so much fun. So these are the things that you take, and it helped, and it gave me a lot of courage to understand that, and at 75 she was traveling, taking a night train. I think when in our country we never do that. We have like a caretaker, or this is slightly off topic, but it really builds on your thought
It's
process.
true. Travel teaches you a lot, and one of the things the current generation has lost because
Yeah.
of social media, etc., is social courage. To be able
Yes.
to speak to a complete stranger and share stories. And it is so much, there's so much depth in that, so much wealth of knowledge you get from somebody else in that. It's a very, very perfect time to, close our conversation for today. It was really thoughtful and timely speaking with you. If there
Thank
is
you.
one message that stands out from today's discussion, it is this:
Yeah.
careers are not built in one big moment. It is built in small choices you make every day. How you communicate, how you learn, how you adapt, how you carry yourself, how you respond to setbacks, and how honestly you tell your own story. For young graduates, this is an important reminder. You do not need to have everything figured out on day one. You do not need a perfect script, a perfect resume, or a perfect plan. But you do need curiosity. You do need discipline. You do need the willingness to grow. And above all, you need to understand that employability today is not just about what you know, it is also about how you think, how you connect, and how you create trust. In a world of automation, noise, and constant comparison, their real edge may not come from being louder. It may come from being clearer, more authentic, more prepared, more consistent. Jolene reminded us that everybody has a story, but the responsibility of shaping that story lies with each of us. For young professionals, that story begins long before success arrives. It begins in the habits you build, the effort you put in when nobody is watching, and the reputation you slowly create through your actions. To all the young listeners tuning in, your first job is not your final identity. Your degree is not your complete definition, and your current uncertainty is not your permanent condition. Keep learning, keep showing up, keep improving your ability to think, communicate, and contribute. Because careers are not only chosen, very often they are built. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jolene. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep writing your own story with intention. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. You too. Be well.